Okay, hello and welcome to the movie night movie reviews. Where are we right now?
I don't know. Where am I?
We are in a Saw dungeon and we are live. Check it out. We got the new live stream studio here. We are a live movie studio, so we have a live director that will be changing camera angles and stuff like that, checking to make sure that it's working and everything like that. We're probably going to get a little bit of an echo because that's playing, but it's working. Can you hear me okay? Everything is good to go. Awesome. All right, Joe. So we are doing Saw X. We are here with James.
Or Saw 10.
Hello.
Hello and welcome, internet viewers.
Nope.
And your name is?
There we go.
Me. Yes. I am James, the host
Hi.
with the most to lose.
Hi, James.
Hi,
You're the
Tremain.
co-host
Sure I am.
with the most to lose. And, all right, cool. It's looking good, Joe? Okay, good. It's looking
Pretty
great.
good.
Awesome. I'm pumped. Okay, so we just got out of Saw 10. Oh my gosh, wow.
Or as it likes to be so called by the kids these days, Saw X.
Yeah, Saw X. Saw X. So yeah, we saw Saw X.
We saw
Actually, we could do the you could do the chat by pressing this.
Well, I was going to read the chat on.
Oh, you can read it on there. Okay, all right, that
Sit
works.
down!
If you guys are here, say hi. Yeah. So we got Saw X, and so how would you summarize this? We don't have Roger. Sorry, Roger. It's okay. Your fault. It's fine. You're missing out. But so how would
We
you
had
just?
other things to attend to.
Well, yeah.
But if you're asking me to summarize the movie, I would have to say pretty good.
We got a viewer, Margot Garcia.
Margot, welcome to the channel.
Welcome to the channel, Margot.
First viewer in the new Tremain Live 2.3.
All right,
Awesome.
so long as Margot doesn't comment first on here, I think we're going to be good.
Right. Yeah. What's up, Margot? How you doing? Are
Probably.
you doing good? Yes.
Check out these angles. Look at that.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a movie review, Joe. So to do so he had Saw X. Okay. So this is the 10th. Is it safe to say? Is this a prequel? This has to be a prequel, right?
This is a prequel, but it's sort of, I would have to say it's almost like a soft prequel, due to the fact that this doesn't take place before the first Saw movie. This actually takes place, I would have to say, between Saw 2, 3, and 4. Because, no spoilers, but
Right.
there are certain characters that weren't originally established until 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they're in this prequel. Now, one you don't see till later. One you actually see halfway through the movie, because the beginning part of the movie is just basically building up to the inevitable.
Right. Yeah. So that is interesting. It's interesting because it is a sequel, but then it goes back in time a bit, and you find a bit more about Tobin Bell's character, John. What's his name?
John Kramer.
John Kramer. That's right. John Kramer. Not to be confused with Kramer from Seinfeld.
No
It's
one
a different-
confuses those
Different
two.
character.
Well, then again, it's like, hey, Jerry, I want you to come to my basement. Let's play a little game together. It's like,
Yeah.
that would have made Seinfeld a lot more funny. But
Right.
I have to give him credit. When I originally saw this,
So when you originally saw,
shut up.
when you
When I
originally
saw, when I first watched Saw,
when you witnessed Saw.
yeah, when I was a little skeptical.
I thought you were gonna say you were a little boy. That'd be kind of weird.
No,
Okay.
I was
39.
no. How old do you think I am? Don't answer that. But when I first watched these movies, I was a little skeptical, like I don't know, and knowing that the movie was just like it's a horror film, it's a hack and slash. I see these things all the time, but I was genuinely surprised at the first Saw movie when it was 90% of it was not gore, violence, or anything. It was all just basically a build up to a very well planned surprise ending.
Right. Yeah. No. Totally. And that's the thing. When Saw came out of the gate, Saw came flying out of the gate, and it was this. It's the perfect independent film, and it literally ticked all the boxes for everything you want to do for your first independent film. Obviously, first you have a great script, that helps a lot.
Yes.
But two, you have limited locations, so you don't need to have a whole bunch of locations. A lot of people that want to make a big movie, they want to put 30 different locations, but the problem is if you want to have Canada plus Egypt plus Botswana, you're not going to have the budget for a first-time filmmaker. So these two filmmakers from Australia, James Wan and the other writer, I forget his name. What was his name? He ended up.
I'm always forgetting his
Josh
name.
Wheelell or something like that. He ended up directing a couple of ones later on, but they both co-wrote it, and then James Wan directed it, and it was a brilliant piece. Like the first one, and it really set off the fact that we're at the 10th one now, and I think it's only been. Has it been 10? How long? When did Saw come out?
Originally, the first Saw actually came out in about 2001, I believe.
2001?
Yeah,
okay.
so we're
I thought
looking...
it was 2008, no? If we're wrong, guys, comment below and correct us.
I'm pretty sure it came out, because if it came out in 2008, we're still looking at 15 years.
Right. It's like one every 2 years, right? Or is it every year?
It was mostly one every 2 years.
Okay.
There was a delay, like one took almost 4 years to get out the gate.
Right.
And I think that was like Saw 8 was that one that took 4 years.
Oh,
but
really?
Saw 9 and Saw 10 was like once every 2 years back on track. And I think that was probably because the popularity for the series kind of fell out, mostly due to the fact that a lot of people kept bringing up the fact that it seems like torture porn. It's like, oh, it's all about the gore and hack and slash. It's not about the characters. The characters and the interesting story was happening. It just wasn't always as front and center because you advertise the gore. You advertise the violence.
Yeah, I think the thing is, some of the sequels kind of turn into that. They turn to just be gratuitous, like gore and everything. And I feel like it was such a kind of a 180, especially from the first one to the second one. I actually saw a documentary on the making of Saw, and they were talking about how when it came out, they made it and then they sold it to Legendary Pictures. Then it became this huge success. But it was really interesting because they were like, yeah, so while James Wan and Lee Wanell, I think his name is.
I think it was Wanell, you were right.
Yeah. So when James and Lee were promoting Saw 1, they're like, we're thinking about making Saw 2. So James was too busy to direct Saw 2, so we just hired someone else to direct Saw 2. And I was like, wait, what? So it kind of is, I feel like I hope they have the rights to all the movies and that James Wan and Lee are making money off all the movies. I hope so. But
it's creative control in any form of film. The creator of the original concept always gets creative control. Such as within Hellraiser.
Not always.
Well, yeah, that is true. But luckily these guys are not fools and they knew what they were doing. So they did get creative control. I mean, we can't be as lucky as Clive Barker. Clive Barker wrote the books for Hellraiser. And he was fortunate enough to direct his movie of Hellraiser. Which is surprising because so much of it is completely separate from the books.
Yeah.
So I felt as though, like, in Saw 2, I actually, when I first saw that, I thought, it's got to be the same director as the first one because it has the same feel to it. A lot of the characters.
I completely disagree. I think it had a completely different. Someone's raising their hand over here.
You agree or disagree on this?
Margot Garcia says 2004.
2004. Thank you, Margot.
Okay, see, I was right. 2004.
No, you said 2008.
No, but you said 2002. We were both wrong.
Agree to disagree.
Thank you, Margot, for the fact checking. So we had what were we talking about?
We were talking about Saw 10.
Dude, Saw 2 was completely different than Saw 1. Saw 1 was like contained. It was intellectual. It was thought provoking. It was. But then like Saw 2 was like, 10 people, let's just see how they die.
See, that's where it differed a bit. Beforehand, it was just 2 people kind of against each other, but at the same time, they had to quietly work together.
Yeah.
In this, it was, you deliberately have to work together or you're not going to succeed. And that was kind of what I liked about it, which was a complete break from the first one where it was 2 people that Kramer was putting against each other, but ultimately trying to convince them through his words that you have to work together. But at the same time, it's, can you really trust these people? Instead, this was you clearly cannot trust anyone in this room, But at the same time, it's you need to work together. He mentioned that right from the beginning. Not just that, it's every single challenge. It was a description of not only what they had to do, but there was an ability saying like, well, there's kind of a way how you can, get out of this. Case in point, when almost the first challenge in Saw 2, guy goes into a furnace in order to grab a cure, and then he's supposed to grab another one, but the minute he grabs the first one, door slams. Had someone just been there to prop the door open, could have gotten in and out. Working together, that could have gotten him in and out.
Yeah, that's what I like about the situation though, because it's such a life or death type thing, and when it's and it's really it's like Lord of the Flies, right? It's like you don't know, not Lord of the Flies with the kids, but it's like you don't know when someone's up, their back is against the wall. How are they going to act? Are they going to be a team player, or are they going to do something for themselves? Right, so that there's a lot of philosophical questions there.
Yes.
Margot Garcia says 1 was better.
Thank you, Margot.
Thank
I like you
for
already.
the interruption, Margot. Thank you. So
I'll get along
in your personal opinion, I do actually agree with Margot, Robbie.
Yeah, the first one was better because it just wanted you to focus on the characters.
Yeah.
It didn't want to focus on gore. It didn't focus on anything. It almost felt like, and don't quote me on this, but it almost felt like an homage to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where they only had 1 gallon of blood to work with, so a lot of it had to be atmosphere. And the atmosphere of just making the movie was very hard to work in, and that's what helped sell it. With Saw 1, the real gore did not come until Gary Elwes literally hacked his foot off.
Yeah.
And that's where the majority...
Carrie.
Carrie Elwes.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Princess Bride.
I don't know why I called it.
It's okay.
But yeah, first off, stellar performance by him.
Yeah.
I just absolutely loved him in it. But the real gore didn't come until he just hacked his foot off. Outside of that, every other thing almost felt like, well, it's not happening off screen, but you don't see any real amount of blood to make someone think that, oh, his head exploded or he's truly dead, just like he got hit.
Right. Yeah, it's just kind of an assumed thing that body is there. So, and also Danny Glover was in it. Danny Glover
did a very good job of playing that jaded former cop who's just his obsession's getting the better of him. So these directors, they knew how to cast.
Yeah,
they picked one some good people in order to play these roles.
Well, yeah, they knew the story too, and so going to back to Saw 10, Saw X, you're assuming, not assuming. Well, most people that are seeing Saw X have most likely seen Saw 1 at least, or one of the Saw franchises.
You lost me. What are we talking about?
Seesaws and
we saw the
playground.
The Saw.
She saw the
seesaws down by the seashore.
Yes. So yeah. So a lot of them kind of blur together. Not gonna lie. I remember really liking Saw 5. I really like Saw 5. I think it starts off really good, and then it dipped down quite a bit, and then it kind of incrementally went up again. And then I think a couple of them weren't as good, but I don't think I saw the 9th one.
You
last
didn't?
9th one. What happened in the 9th one?
So the 9th one primarily focused away from John Kramer, but it focused on his disciples.
Okay.
Case in point, it was mostly focused on this one guy who, former Marine, former medic training, he came back only to kind of take revenge on someone who had wronged him in the past.
Oh.
And it was building up. But the film was actually shot, in my opinion, very ingeniously. Because a lot of the time, it keeps cutting back. Like in the first film, you have everything that's going on in the real world, and then it cuts back to what's going on in the traps.
Yeah.
And in this one, it was a group of people that had to work their way through, and bit by bit, they're just getting whittled down to 2. But it keeps going back to someone who's trying to... It made you think that they were trying to solve where these people are, and we got to save them in time, only to find out that the people who were in the traps, they had died years ago.
Ooh.
They were part of John Kramer's... one of his first traps, before he got to Carrie Elwes.
Oh wow!
And these were
interesting.
And these were a lot of the people in the hospital that gave him like a bad diagnosis or screwed him over. Kind of similar to what we'll be talking about soon when it comes to spoilers, but for them.
Yeah.
But in this one, you find out that the guy, like one of the lead medical examiners, who's kind of helping this detective go through all this, he's actually the one who helped John Kramer through the traps. In fact, he was in one of the first traps, but Kramer felt bad. He's like, dude, you made a mistake. You don't belong here. Which I loved that characteristic of John Kramer. Is just that he's not infallible.
Right.
He has understanding of human nature better than anyone else, and he understands the concept of forgiveness.
You know, and you kind of relate, especially with this movie, you kind of relate to him a lot, you know? And it's like you feel for him, and for him to be the whole villain from day one, you're like, oh, I actually get where he's coming from now. And now, it's always kind of been like the whole... I love the whole morality thing where it's like he's punishing people that are immoral or people that deserve it or
it's
whatever
not so much that they're immoral, it's they've lost the belief of what it means to be human, to really appreciate what you have for life. Case in point, in society we take for granted all the things that make our lives convenient. Mm-hmm. What if they were taken away?
Right.
It's a lot harder to do anything than like, is it easier to literally have a shower, or is it easier to go down by the river and bathe?
Right. Obviously, down by the river and bathe.
Take away the conveniences, and we're left with the hard truth of how difficult life can be, and what we've earned should be appreciated.
Yeah.
And these movies focus on the same thing, and I agree with what you say. Like, when you focus on the humanity to sympathize with John Kramer, it just makes him that much more of an interesting character, and that's what I think this film was trying to focus on in the first half, was just focusing on all of the things that made him human and that gave his life purpose. So at a certain point, when he felt as though he might have a second chance in life, he does appreciate it a bit more. He starts looking back and thinking, maybe should I still be doing what I'm doing? It makes him rethink. He puts in, at that point, he becomes more of a part of his victims, kind of like walk a mile in someone else's shoes. For a brief moment, he starts thinking like his victims again. Okay?
Yeah. And then he also says, like, you know, everyone deserves a redemption story. You know, people deserve to have a second chance no matter how bad they are, which is really interesting because it's like you would think, oh, screw this person did all these terrible, heinous things. But then it's like, you know, they get 3 minutes to do it. But I feel like some of these traps are like, they're set up to just lose. There's no way they're going to win this. 3 minutes is not a whole lot.
So actually, that was explained in the other Saw movies, that the time limit was more than enough time if they didn't panic, if they listened, and took into even if they took 30 seconds to look at their surroundings and understand what's going on. But human nature, people in a desperate situation will panic, they will be afraid, they will be angry, and they don't think. That's why the 3 minutes is there. It gives you 1 minute to panic, 1 minute to assess, and 1 minute to do what needs to be done. And in every single one of those traps, they spent the majority of their time panicking.
Right.
They spent almost a minute and a half just like, rather than just like.
But I mean, can you blame them though? Can you blame them? I mean, that would be like, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I would probably be taking 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and then I'd probably do it in the last second. I'd win, hopefully. But, you know, my leg would be chopped off or whatever you got to do. I don't know. It is those things, those moral things, where sometimes it's like, well, chop your leg off or, you know, die. It's almost like, okay, just kill me. Just kill me now.
I don't know. It's like,
but it's pretty brutal though. Like there was a really brutal. There was one scene in particular that really stood out, and I won't give away what it was, but it really stood out. Where that is something where, you know, I'm not particularly a big gore person.
Was it the?
Yes. Yeah.
You'll see.
Yeah. You see and I see what, you know.
But will they?
Yeah, but will they? Anyway, so particular trap where it was like, oh my gosh, and then there's the time crunch. So that's perfect for suspense. It's like you have a ticking time bomb. You have are they going to do it? Or are they not going to do it? Because if they do it, they're going to either cut their hand off, cut their leg, whatever it is. We've seen it. But there's always a really intricate trap that they have to do. They have to get out of, and they can do it, and some of them do. But but if they don't, it's so perfect for suspense. And then there's the next one because there's multiple characters in multiple situations, so there's a lot of suspense involved.
I think that was one of the things that I kind of liked about the first versus the third, fourth, and fifth up till the sixth was they almost seemed like they were trying to escalate the amount of bodies they could put into it rather than just escalating the suspense of will they, won't they. It wasn't until around Saw 8 and 9 is where they finally understood the proper rhythm. Because when you went from Saw 1...
It only takes them 9 movies to get there. 8 or 9.
When you look at Saw 1...
I feel like Saw 5, from what I remember...
Saw 5 was mostly kind of... As much as I do like the franchise, and I have to admit when there are flaws, but when there are successes, I felt as though 5 was nothing more than a gore fest.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'm getting them confused.
I felt most of the story was only seen in the background, or kind of like you had to have someone who watched the film and gave you like one of those breakdowns and highlights in order to understand what's really going on outside of all the people that just kept getting butchered.
Well, the thing is, the biggest difference going back to Saw 1 and 2, there's a disparity of the style of both movies, and that's kind of the extreme examples of all the movies in the series, where the first one, there's 2 main characters, you care about the characters, you care about everyone in there, you care about what happens to them. And then the second one, there's so many characters, you don't give a crap about anyone. You're kind of like, oh, well, if they die, they die. I kind of want to see how they die. It becomes more of that gore fest where
there were 3 people in that movie I could not give a shit about.
Oh yeah, but the thing is though, it's whether you love them or hate them, that's a great thing. But if you don't care about them, that's a terrible thing in a movie because you want the audience to care either way, whether they're terrible people and you hate them, then you get satisfaction of them dying, or you get satisfaction of them getting tortured or whatever. Hypothetically, this is all movie speaking. Not
that
really,
goes back to me saying there are 3 characters in Saw 2 that I couldn't give a shit about, and the thing is,
I think there were 10 that I didn't. I don't think I cared about anyone of them.
The thing is even if it's a negative opinion, you still slightly care.
Right, exactly.
You care that,
you care either that they die, you want them to die, and if they live...
You want them to get their comeuppance versus you want them to succeed. But there were just some that you're like, I'm sorry, why should I care about you?
Right, yeah, it's like, okay, just die already, why are you elongating it? Well, the biggest thing, too, it's tough because acting is really crucial in these movies because it's to put yourself in this position where you have a 3-minute ticking time bomb and you don't want it to be terrible acting because it's like, oh no, what am I gonna it's like, okay, this is terrible. You have to be pretty good you know what I mean? I gotta give them a lot of credit, which, by the way, this movie, I would say everyone, I think except for one character,
I know you're talking about, we had that discussion
we did
in the theater. It was just like, it was his time to go, but at the same time, it's like his conviction to what was happening to him. It's just like, we're sitting there going, I don't think he's giving it 110%. I mean,
yeah, it was something where he has to cut part of his body.
Spoilers!
A lot of them do, but the way he was acting, it's like you're cutting your hand off, and it's just like, oh no, my hand, it hurts so bad.
He's trying to give too much of a performance, but there's no conviction. Like,
right.
Dude, we get it.
Yeah. There's the over. Okay, yes.
You got someone?
Margot Garcia says take Blair Witch and Final Destination.
We'll get to those films in another time, because my opinion of them, I am going to rail hard on them.
Yes, rail hard, right, Margot?
No, Margot, please don't quote me on that.
Is Margot the only one commenting, by the way? It's okay.
So far.
Hey, we got an audience.
God bless her, though.
We got an audience. God bless you.
Thank you, Margot Garcia.
Thank you, Margot Robbie. Are you looking at all comments, not just most of them?
Okay. So
yeah,
I know what you mean. It's like the level of acting in this one, outside of one person, the acting was really good.
Yeah.
Especially in the first half of the film.
Yes.
The acting, just by the John Kramer and the scene with the janitor.
Yes.
No spoilers,
Yeah.
but no conversation was needed to be said, and yet there was just so much you could see in that film. There was so much emotion, so much everything, and you kind of just had that feel for, oh yeah, I get where he's coming from.
Right. Yeah, and then just that whole that scene stands out particularly, and that's something that you're not going to forget. Anytime soon, something like that. When
It's something I won't forget.
Yeah, I won't forget about it either.
The weird thing is with the cobwebs on the device, I originally thought there was, spiders were involved. I pleasantly surprised, of course, but...
Cobwebs on what device?
Oh, the device that he was hooked up to.
Oh.
So there were just some cobwebs on there as it was focusing toward this one, inner chamber of it.
Huh.
And because of that, I thought, oh, is he going to, let tarantulas eat him or something?
Ooh.
I'm like, that would be interesting, but that doesn't fit with the narrative. Are they trying something new?
Have they done a bug thing?
No.
I
Primarily,
don't think
it's
do.
always...
It's always
something
a
I have
trap.
to comment
it's always
on.
some type of trap.
Something I have to comment on the style.
Yeah.
The Saw franchise has always kept to a particular style, which, credit where credit is due, they have maintained this.
Yes.
Which has always been that gritty, gutter metallic look.
Okay. Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah.
You have to appreciate that, because in the very beginning, it's just what they have to work with.
Right.
But they just kept working with it to the point where it kind of became the majority of the look for Saw. And when you understand John Kramer was an architect, he was an engineer, so it makes sense. He would be using scrap metal in a lot of his materials because he wouldn't want it traced back to him.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're not going to be like Bruce Wayne where you're just buying this stuff in bulk through shell companies. No one has that ability. And hardware stores would keep track of, oh, gee, I wonder who's buying what bear traps.
Right. Well, that is a thing where it's like there's a big moment that is kind of glossed over in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the setup of all the traps. Where does he get... you see him designing it and stuff like that, but it's like he's got to actually physically set them up. He's got to physically put them in the warehouse. He's got to physically get all the parts and materials.
That's kind of what was interesting about Saw 8 and 9 is they actually addressed the fact that John Kramer has workshops.
Oh,
He's got a lot of them that are kind of scattered throughout the place.
Yeah.
And he does have disciples that help him out with this. In fact, Koules' character, actually at the end of Saw 1, when he kind of just cuts his own leg off and crawls away, he gets picked up by Kramer. Kramer puts a prosthetic on him and sends him on his merry way. Well, the guy comes back to him after a while. And he becomes a disciple willing to help him because he gains an understanding. Because after John Kramer stitched him up and gave him the prosthetic leg, he got back with his wife. Eventually he did divorce her, but for separate reasons. But he appreciated everything so much more.
Well, it's kind of like in Fight Club when when he he takes the guy from the convenience store and he's like, what did you want to do when you grow up? And he's like, oh, I wanted to be a vet or whatever it is. And he's like, if you're not doing this in the next 3 days, I'm gonna come back. And,
yeah, it's almost kick your ass.
Yeah, it is something where it is a wake up call. And they say people get brushed near death experiences brush you with death. I mean, I had a little bit of an accident this year, and it definitely makes you think, oh my gosh, it could have been a lot worse than what it was, So it really puts into question, when bad things like that happen, you think about, oh my gosh, as bad as it was, you make it out, and it's like, okay, wow, I really appreciate things a lot more.
Yeah, when you're put into the situation, when fight or flight kicks in, it's either fight, Actually, it's an interesting point. I think this movie had that point in it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we'll get to that in a little bit. But there was the one scene where he heard testimony from another cancer patient. He says, "I'm gonna fight this," versus everyone else was telling him, "Just lay down and die."
Right. Yeah.
So it's this is the argument of it's not yourself saying fight or flight. It's other people saying, do you want to fight this? Do you want to survive? Or, hey, maybe you should just, kind of give up.
Right, and he's like, yeah, because he's like, there's a lot of work to do. And then he's like, well, why don't you retire? It's like, wait, that's the opposite of doing the work. Because I know that, And that's another horrible, terrifying thing, because I think we all personally have known people that have had, these diagnoses and have time limits of and some are extended, some aren't.
Family, friends, or family or friends
right.
who've had that
or
happen.
friends, yeah. So it does really put into question. I mean, that whole thing, and then also the vulnerability of these people, right, is what they really prey on.
That's what got them into the situation originally. Is their vulnerabilities, their vices, is what led to them making these choices. Because Kramer says in almost every single film that everyone has a choice. You made the choices to be here, so you being in this little bear trap of mine was your choice. Every single one of your actions has consequences. This is just the epitome of it.
Right. Could you imagine if he was like a real character? I mean, he would be pretty rampant. I feel like a lot of people would be in these traps almost at all times for any terrible thing that we might have done. Not talking about me, for example, but
I did nothing wrong, and you can't prove it without bodies.
That's right. Or information, or
eyewitness testimony.
Yeah, right. They only count for so much. But
this might be Tremain's last video, just
right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but I really love like that whole thing. So we can still talk about the plot without giving too much away. So we all know, because Jigsaw had the cancer diagnosis, right? So he gets
those
the
were
diagnosis
already addressed.
Yeah, we all know he was sick, he was ill, and
because this is sort of a prequel to like between 2 and 3 at that time. Mm-hmm. We can talk all about the diagnosis, the cancer, the traps, and what John Kramer went through.
Right.
Because I think one of the things I loved about the second one was the fact that the detective who came in, he's like, "You want your son back? Okay, you have to sit and listen to my story. When it's over, you'll get your son back." And sure enough, timer on a safe goes off. His son was in it the whole time. It's like, literally, if you just sat there and listened to him, it would have been over. And in John Kramer's talking to him, he's telling him that at a lowest point when his wife had miscarried with their child, that was a low point. When he got the cancer diagnosis, that was the lowest point, and then he tried to like run his car off the road. But he survived with a piece of rebar in him, and he pulled it out, and he appreciated everything he had much more. He went through what everyone went through and fought tooth and nail to get out of the wreckage and survive. And like that's kind of what I liked about that, which is the epitome of what he's trying to prove.
Right, so he's kind of like giving these people the taste of the medicine that he's gotten before, and the fact that he's had the second chance and taken the second chance and become so appreciative, and he's really kind of become, he's like the, how do you describe it? What's that called? He's like the, he's not the Grim Reaper, but he's like the, the Punisher or something like that,
he's a form of the Angel of Death. Yeah. Essentially, in this case, he's the angel of mercy and death. Whereas in one hand, he can provide your destruction, or in the other, he can provide your salvation. But the irony is, he's allowing you to provide it yourself.
Yes.
Which I actually kind of like that about his character. And the actor who plays John Kramer, stellar work every time.
Oh, yeah, Tobin Bell. Like, well, see, that's the thing. I think with Saw, because he did expire in a certain previous one. I think they realized that the Saw is kind of empty without him in there somehow. So they kind of have to shoehorn him in to create a story and put him back in there and make him be the actor there. But he did such a great job, and that's the beauty of these things, is like if you have a really kind of diabolical villain. Like every like Alfred Hitchcock says, like every villain thinks that he's the hero in his own story.
True.
So there's parts where you can actually relate to this guy, but then at the end of the day, he is kind of a diabolical serial killer.
When you think about it, a true villain, like the villains that are something akin to that of the Joker.
Yeah.
Mind you, the Joker even admitted that he himself went crazy and was smart enough to admit it. Those are his words exactly.
Right.
But the reality is, a true villain, they don't believe that what they're doing is wrong. Like,
Yeah,
at all.
right.
A good, well-written villain will always believe that what they're doing is not only justified, but appropriate.
We got the grape drink.
Thirsty
going
there,
on.
my friend?
I am a little bit. The grape drink flowing. How are you? You want some grape drink? You
I'm good.
Sprite. Okay.
I got the spreaders.
Oh no, there it goes.
Birds will fly.
That's true. So yeah, no, it was. I had a lot of fun with this one. It was very entertaining. I thought, it was very suspenseful. I thought it was very suspenseful. I was on the edge of my seat. And it's also like you're having a good time with it too, because it is. I mean, for us, like we do improv all the time.
Oh
so
my God.
I'm always thinking about like lines, what to say to the other character.
I thought we were gonna be shushed in that movie, like halfway, like half of the whole film, like intermittently. We're not like on the edge of our seats going, or ooh. We're sitting there laughing hysterically, like, it was so weird because it's like it's gory moments that people are like sawing parts of them off or like cutting in, and we're just like pointing like, I don't think he meant that, and we're just going just laughing. I thought there was like some guy that was just gonna go.
I know.
Some of us are trying to watch the gore in peace.
Yeah, I felt for the poor guy that was on his own at the theater, like 2 seats over from us. I thought he was going to give us a dirty eyeball, but he didn't. He didn't at all, The thing is, like, to be fair, I didn't feel so bad because we had the guy hawking up a storm behind us.
Oh my God! It's like every 5 seconds, like,
making these gross spit noises, like hawking and coughing. And
get some tissue, like
yeah,
cough in your sleeve.
Nose. yeah. He's like coughing. I'm like, gosh. Like, luckily it was a lot less the second half than it was the first half. And then, of course, with the movie, it gets louder. I think, but I feel like the first half. I think he was making a point to do that every 20 seconds, to like bug us or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't really care.
Or people don't even just have some people just don't have manners. Or they're not even aware. They're just hawking up a storm, and it's like, all right.
Speaking of manners, we'd be very rude not to get to the spoilers.
Yes, that's true. Okay, so we're gonna get to spoiler territory right now.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert, and then we will. Oh, it's kind of hard to do this because it's like. If you want to see the movie and you don't want us to give it away, should we rate it now or should we wait to rate it at the end? Because it's kind of like if they leave and they're not sure when to come back.
I say we could rate it now.
Okay.
And then explain during spoilers why we gave our rating the way we did.
I like that. Okay, cool.
Ladies first.
Okay, so go ahead.
After you.
Yeah, ladies first. There it is.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. The floor is yours.
All after you, madam.
Joe? Joe, there he is.
It was no Blue Beetle. That means it was. I don't know. I should have sang Paw Patrol tonight.
Is it a bit too gory for you?
I'm gonna need some Disney to unwind.
Was it too much for your delicate tum tums?
So
it wasn't like I said. It wasn't clickbait. Like it was a gory movie, and I would not advise anyone under the age of
18 or 17. Well, 17.
41.
Yeah, 41. yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I just made it. So
so
I saw some 6-year-olds back there.
All right, so yeah, if you don't really like gory, maybe don't. Well, you know what you're getting yourself into when you
it's
when
not
you
a
watch
rom
it.
com.
But what would you give it rating wise, Joe?
The horror movie, decent plot twist. Cinematography was good.
Mm-hmm.
They had to use that famous movie trope where they have like, oh, what's your number? 555.
Right. Yeah. Right.
At least they added like an area code before.
Yeah.
Movie. I was rooting for the guy. Well, I thought he was
The bad guy.
Yeah, because I thought he's gonna change his life and join Habitat for Humanity or something. But that we'll get to that.
Okay, but rating wise, out of 5.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
I don't know what you're going into. It's not a pleasant experience, but for what it is, it's
It's not a feel-good film of the year.
It wasn't boring.
I don't know. Made me.
It wasn't
feel
boring.
Good.
Yeah,
It wasn't
exactly.
boring.
Yeah, I was.
Made me feel good.
Well, there you go. That's true. I felt pretty good about it too. Okay, cool. So.
Margot says, "Damn, I'm out."
Oh,
Take
yeah.
care, Margot. Thanks for
See you,
joining.
Margo.
Bye, Margaret.
So, yeah, I'd give it 4.5. I'd give it 4.5. I really liked it. It might be my second favorite out of all the Saws. It might even be more of my favorite than one because
All the Saws you've seen.
all the Saws that I've seen and saw before. So, yeah, you know what? I will go out on a limb. Obviously the first one set the tone for it, so it has that. It has that, and it's hard to replace that. But I think it is. In terms of this movie, I would rather watch this one again than the other one again. And I give it 4.5. I was thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. There was the tropes they had. There was like one actor that I really didn't really think was very good, but everyone else was really good. So I think that could be for 98% of the cast to be well done. Give it 4.5 out of 5. Go see Saw 10 if you want to.
I'm actually gonna have to give it the same score. I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. I agree with a lot of the same points. Like, you know what you're getting into with this, so it's not really about spoilers or surprise because we all know how it's gonna end. But I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised on a few little twists and turns. That was nice. I did like the fact that the traps were actually explained very well on how to get out of them, and it wasn't something like it was a death trap that you couldn't get out of. It's something that you quite literally could, like, okay, that seems reasonable. Agreed. There's one person in there I didn't really like his acting. It's simply because the minute he starts cutting into himself, I just don't feel as though his convictions of screams of pain were like. I don't think he was putting his all into it.
No, yeah, right. And actually everything else that he was doing before that wasn't good either. So
but the humanity in the beginning with John Kramer, how his thought process went throughout all of it, and just how he exacts his, I don't want to call it revenge, but just going about the retribution that is owed. I have to admit that it was actually really good, very well done, very well structured. And outside of the acting, the locations were just beautiful.
Yeah.
The cinematography for those, and a lot of them were outdoors. Yeah. That is not an easy thing to do. We've both been on sets outdoors and...
Indoors, outdoors. Yeah.
Indoors, outdoors, all over the place, or indoors that look like outdoors.
Yeah,
like lighting,
outdoors that look like indoors.
Yeah. They all have to be done very well, and they were in this film. Yeah. So, 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid score. Yeah, Saw 10. Yeah, I mean, a larger question would be how would it rank on the Saw scale?
Ooh, sadly, I'm gonna have to say this one is gonna rank third in my opinion.
Third, okay. What would be the second one?
Well, the second one is Saw, 8.
Okay.
Because that goes into after John Kramer's death, when you get to really understand how his disciples are at work. Okay. That also shows you the prequel of how one of them became one of his disciples.
Yeah.
Number 3, number 1 is number 1.
Number 1 is number 1. Okay, yeah. No, that's fair. That's very fair. That's very fair. I would actually say... This, I mean, it's hard. It's hard for me to not. I mean, because it's hard to not say, because there wouldn't be a 10, obviously, without the first one.
That's true.
But in terms of movies, in terms of enjoyability, I would put this one at number 1. I'd put number 1 at number 2.
How dare you?
I know, but they're neck and neck. You know, they're neck and saw it off. Okay. All right, so let's get to spoiler territory. Spoiler.
Get to the fun part.
So what I really like about this movie is that. So, guys, spoiler, if you guys haven't seen it, don't go. But if you have seen it, now we can really get to the nitty-gritty and really talk about it. So, I love movies about ruses and scams.
It's the twists and turns.
The twists and turns.
Yeah.
And like you're going along, and especially this. Like the thing is about this movie is like gosh, like what you were saying earlier about like there's companies that take advantage of people that are in the worst, most vulnerable positions.
I really wish it wasn't true, but the sad thing is it is. And in this, especially with cancer patients, and a lot of the focus is on John Kramer and his battle through cancer for the first, second, and quite a few of the films.
Yeah.
And this one, it does not shy away from that. And it actually kind of, it really hit me because I've had both sides of my family have cancer problems. Oh, wow. So I'm probably looking at that down the line.
Jeez.
But I've been in those hospital rooms and I've heard those doctor speeches where it's just like, it's not looking good.
Yeah, that's same here.
So it's like when John Kramer was in the hospital and just in the beginning of the film, you don't really see much of any gore. I mean, you do get the teaser that comes in the very beginning, but it just goes directly to John Kramer in all of his humanity, just like getting the diagnosis from the doctor. And I thought that was a great way to start.
Yeah,
it's just that scene with him and the doctor having that conversation. He's staring at him.
Right, and then and to be told, like he's like, oh, I still have got a lot of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
And then to be told, yeah, no, you should just retire. Like,
it's
just give up. Just go fishing and die.
Admittedly, the doctor doesn't know that he's Jigsaw.
Right. Yeah.
And that he's talking about his work to do is, like, essentially how he views helping people. But at the same time, it's to hear the words, like, what if the doctor did, like, if you were just a normal person? This doctor is telling you to lay down and die.
Right. Yeah.
That's something I don't think anyone wants to hear from a doctor. And it's just like, I love how pissed he got at him. It's like, so you're telling me that the best diagnosis you can give me is to just lay down and die.
No,
and
you said die easy.
Oh, yeah, die. Thank you. Easy. He's like, it's just to die.
Well, and that's when I'm like, no, it's to die hard, with a vengeance.
I know a German guy named Gruber who you'd love to meet.
Yeah, no, so this is really about Jigsaw's kind of origin story and how he got so pissed, and he really
it's one aspect of his origin story, but yes.
Yeah, he really gets screwed over though, and so basically, he goes to the cancer group, and everyone else has cancer, or so they say. Everyone, and one guy's like, oh, I'm gonna fight my ass off, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and then a little bit later, he sees that guy, and now all of a sudden the guy's super healthy. He's in a great mood, and he's like, "Oh man!" He's like, he's like, "Hey, I went to this doctor. He did
what a lot of people. And admittedly, I've heard those stories from actual hospital rooms of people who said, like, "Look, I went to this guy. People said he was a quack. We went to like way across in Norway or whatever.
We went to Winnemucca."
Yeah, it's like, I went to Cancun, the place where, they don't ask for insurance, and we got the surgery, and I'm cancer-free now. It's like...
Right, yeah.
That's kind of one of the saddest things when you hear those stories, because you're just having to wonder, how much did they take you for?
Dude, I know. Wasn't it Steve Jobs, too? It's like Steve Jobs went to some quack doctor that did this like fake...
Holistic medicine.
Yeah, holistic medicine, and it's like, whoa, you really... Oh my gosh, like... People that are like even rich and famous fall for this type of stuff, and it's like
because when put into that situation, you want any strand of hope,
and also you'll do whatever it takes. Because it's like, hey, oh, you're a multi-billionaire. I have the solution for you. It's $100 million, but you have to go to Camp Winnemucca and see this doctor. It's a very specialized procedure. They pay whatever it takes. They pay the price, and that's what it's like. Oh my gosh, like, dude, this is like. It's like, well, actually, it's $200 million. The price just went up, and it's like,
yeah.
When you're talking to a Steve Jobs type or something, someone
Steve Jobs is worth billions
can
of dollars,
afford it, right? Someone that could afford it. It's like, well, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna just not pay that money and just die, or is he gonna pay the money and get cured? So. Or is he going to pay the money and die anyway? So that's exactly what happens to this whole thing, and you had called it, right? Did you had already seen? Did you know that already, or had you already...
I've seen these scenarios before. Like, I've actually watched those cold case files and heard people's stories and testimony of situations like that occurred. When you just hear about something that seems a little too good to be true. You're willing to believe it because you just want that little sliver of hope. And then what happens? It's nothing more than a massive facade, simply because... And all the tells were there in this movie.
Yeah.
It was we're testing out this new facility, and I think everyone has seen those current YouTube videos of like the current medical, the current medical society doesn't want you to know this, but for some strange reason we have a YouTube video telling you about it that hasn't been shut down yet.
Right.
And I pointed that out in the film, like, strangely, this lady has a dad who tried to come up with this great medical experiment that is a cure-all, and you then see her video, which is on a website link, and it's like...
Right, and she, you made a good point. You're like, she's like saying that, the government wants to shut us down. They're all here they're on our tail. And then James is like, but they have a website that's not been shut down yet. And then you were also like, and then I was like, one of the cameras shutting off, I think.
That one is,
that's my one. No, that's your one.
Mine.
You want to change the battery real quick?
Change the battery.
Okay. Yeah, we can
Change
just
the
go.
battery.
Leave it on. Keep the wide shot going.
So,
sorry, what was I gonna say? So
we were talking about me.
Yes. Enough about me. Let's talk about my career. Let's. Excuse me. What was I gonna say? What were we talking?
Government. There's always a.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
because they're like, the government's after us. Like, but somehow, like, all Jigsaw has to do is just make a phone call, and and then he gets access to her. And then I knew, like, when she was like,
it's like,
we have spots opened up in 3 months, and it's like, and he's like, he doesn't say it, and he's like, you don't have 3 months, do you? It's like, dude, that is so brutal. That is so messed up, because it's like, I got one in 3 months. Oh, you have a terminal illness? You got 2 months to live? Well, I got a perfect spot open next year. It's
the majority of those people who face that. If you ever saw Breaking Bad, he had even best case scenario. 2 years. When you have stage 4, you don't have very long. You have less than 5 years. So when you hear 3 months, that might as well be 3 years.
Right. Well, no, and then he was told he has only had a couple months. So of course, there's those places where they're told a couple months and then they get 10 years or they live a happy life. But of course, but it's a perfect sales pitch, because it's like, actually, you know what? We do have another one coming up next week.
We just happen to have an opening.
We just happen to have an opening next week, and we might be able to squeeze you in.
It's like, we'll just do double surgery.
Yeah, and then it's like, you know what? Let me make some phone calls. Let me talk to them. You know what? Let me see if I can fit you in. I'll make sure they work a little bit of overtime. And it's like, oh man, this is like such a ruse. It is such a
scam.
Such a scam. Such a scam.
But that's kind of what really hit home for I think a lot of people, is this movie really hit you where it hurts the most. It's not just the fact that they made an enemy out of John Kramer, but the fact that this was something... Okay, Jigsaw aside...
Yeah.
Like, outside of the guy who's kidnapping people and putting them through death devices, that aside, this is something that can happen in the real world.
Yeah.
Outside of getting your revenge on them. But...
Right. And, there's a lot of variables that, where does he get all his tools and materials, and a lot of
like I said, because of the look, it's very obvious he gets them through scrap metal, and being an engineer, you have access to a lot of scrap.
Right, but still, there's like a lot of time in between. It's like how long? I don't think it's like an hour to set up each one of these traps. It's probably a couple days to set up a couple of these traps.
More than likely.
Joe's is like living the life.
I feel like I'm watching TV.
He's like chilling in the back, just like with the remote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tremain.
technical director Joe. He's just promoted the live stream. So.
But yeah, it was strange. It was just all the signs were there. It's like, oh, the government wants to shut us down, but they haven't tracked you down through your IP address on your video that you have online. And it's like, the link is still active. Oh, the link's still active. I thought you were on the run from the government.
Yeah, it's like, wait a second. Yeah, let me give you this link. www.
And the real world is, why would the government ever want to like hunt you down or say it's easier to discredit you and leave you like that? It's like, oh, we just have to basically spread some baseless rumors and keep telling everyone in the science community that you're full of shit. Literally, that's all it'll take, and someone's grant goes out the window, and then people become desperate, do something illegal, and no one listens to them anymore.
Dude, everything about it was so great. Yeah, everything about
kind
it was
of, yeah, but at the same time, that's business. If you don't like a competitor, don't throw them under the bus of the government. Literally just tell everyone that their Band-Aids are giving people diarrhea.
Right.
There's a handful of people that'll believe you and spread that rumor.
Yeah, and then they'll spread all this diarrhea.
There you go.
Yeah, if it works. So
problem in this case, they just shat in the wrong bed.
So I love the whole. There's this really cool show that I watched. There's a really cool show that I.
Yeah, the battery guy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right,
No, yeah. There's a really cool show that I watch. I forget the host, but he basically goes to different countries and he tries to get scammed. So there's this one, he goes to India and he takes a taxi. There's like this taxi cab scam where one, they take you on this podunk crazy, like a destination that's 10 times longer.
Oh yeah, those are the unlicensed taxis.
Yeah,
a lot.
But like how everyone. What I would like at this one is like everyone is in on it, from the taxi driver to there's like the kidnappers that show up and say, "Hey, what's your name?" And then he's like, "Oh no, I'm testing you." And then they kidnap him and they bring him to this undisclosed location. Oh, just kidding, you're gonna be fine. Da, da, da. And so in this show, he was taking this taxi and they go down the street in India and all of a sudden there's like this religious parade festival happening.
Yeah.
And like these kids come out, like these priests from India come out from the woodworks and they're like banging these drums. They're having this religious ceremony. They're like bowing down and everything. And they're like, sorry, you can't cross here. This is the only street that we can go. This is going to be another 3 hours, right? It's going to be another 3 hours. He's like, trying to go to my hotel here. And they're like, well, if you make a donation to the church, I can ask them to move away, right?
Well, the problem with that is if you've actually... Now, I haven't been to India.
Well, this guy tries to get scammed, by the way.
Yeah, I hear it's a lovely place, but at the same time, when you hear a lot of stories like that, you also hear people who have went and had a wonderful time and still kind of describe, oh, this is the only road and there's always a parade going through there, or there's a cow that just decided to lay in the road.
Right, yeah, but this show was really good because it showed it, and they had the whole documentary, and it all, he documents all of it and everything, so it's really fascinating. But you just learn how, because something like this, it's not something that one person can pull off.
But it's funny. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because in Saw 10 that was actually in there. Like, if you recall, after going through all of hearing the BS from the doctor. Oh, by the way, we have to talk about the janitor scene real quick.
Yes. Let's talk
so
about it.
John Kramer, he sees this kid who's just like, there's this guy who's basically in who's out of it. He's probably sleeping, coma, I don't know which, but he's in like an almost full body sling cast. And this janitor, it's like a 19-year-old to 20-year-old kid who's just going through his stuff. And he picks up gold ring, watch, and Kramer all of a sudden just looks at this kid through this almost like panel glass. Yeah. When you got the frosted and the little between them. And the kid doesn't notice him, but he's looking at him, and he looks at the guy's the finger splints that he's got holding himself up, and just in his mind comes up with a trap that just sucks out his eyes through this vacuum unless he turns a dial that breaks each one of his fingers. Do it in 1 minute's time, or you get your eyes sucked out. And at first I'm thinking, oh my god, we don't see how he kidnapped him, but he got the boy.
You're right. Yeah, and then they also had with that thing, it was such a clever trap because it was each finger was in the thing, and then he turns a dial.
You had 60 seconds.
One,
so
one to five, and each one is another
1,
finger.
2, 3, 4, 5.
I had my hand smashed in a car door by accident. My brother was closing it, and my hand was there when I was a kid, and it's like that scene just like brought that all back.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. If you got
I hate finger things.
I've heard
Oh,
my
yeah.
hand and my like it's not. Yeah.
These fingers don't raise. I broke my fist in a sparring match.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I punched the wrong thing and like ah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you punch a wall, it's like.
Oh, I didn't punch a wall. I punched a steel girder that was holding the cage up.
I punched Steel.
Yeah,
Superman, Man of Steel. Yeah, I punched him and I didn't get hurt at all. He got hurt.
Yeah, sure you did.
You should have seen him. You should have seen him.
Yeah, sure you did.
No, but I really like that because it kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, oh my gosh, he's in a trap, and now this guy's got the tubes in his eyeballs, and they get sucked out. And it was just his fantasy thinking about it.
Yeah, because
right?
the kid notices him, puts the stuff, and he just says, "Good choice."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, God, that held so much more weight if this kid only knew who he's talking to.
Oh, dude, another thing, like when he's at the treatment center, right? The treatment center. And then, was it after? I think it was after his operation or something. It was like either right after or right before. And he's peaceful, kind of in the park area.
That was after the treatment.
Oh, it was after. Yeah, after he's like, he's got a sketch pad,
and
then you see what he's drawing, and it's a diagram of a trap to murder someone.
It was the reverse bear trap that's supposed to like hook into your jaw and rip your mouth open. It's like, it's horrible, but at the same time, it's like...
It was hilarious, right? And that's what's funny about it, because it had humor in it, but it's intentional, but it's, it's more subtle.
I'm expecting the internet to make that a meme of just like, you see John Kramer looking up Solsley, then looking down, and it's just like someone pans in like dicks or just the stupid artwork.
He's solving a Sudoku puzzle.
Right, yeah. He's doing a crossword.
He looks so like...
Or it's like, or like a Wheel of Fortune, or he's playing Hangman or something.
He looks so wise and wistful looking down, and it's just nonsense.
Yeah. Or he's like doing like spirals.
Or it's like a stick figure cat.
So I remember in class, I would end up like, instead of notes, I would end up like sketching the teacher. So I'd sketch the teacher, or I'd sketch the view, and then so you look at my notes, and it's just a bunch of just doodles, just these little cartoonish sketches. And
I suck at doodling. All I ever did was just like stop listening to the teacher and just saying, "A long time ago, in a forest somewhere in the meadows, there was." I'm just like, teachers are like, and anyway, in the galaxy far, far away. Yeah, they'll know, bro. Sure, whatever. It's like not. I think everyone does that. They just drift, and there's like.
Right. So I love it, but the whole ruse was so, and then the way the doctor was, the lead, who ended up being the lead villain, the blonde girl, right?
Yeah, she seems
she acts like a doctor. She's this hello, John, like, we are here to help you.
Even after when she was taken and just like had to go through all of everything, she was even trying to coach other people on how to survive. So it kind of made you want to root for her. Like, come on, you can all do this.
Right.
Like, just a bit more. And I kind of found myself going, like, the first one, this girl's got to cut her leg off with a guild saw. And I have one of those. I use it for...
Oh, really?
Not for people. You actually use this for outdoors. They're used to chop tree branches. Very useful.
Oh, wow.
But this girl's using it to cut right into her leg through the bone, and I'm just like, come on, just a bit more. You only got so much flesh to go. It's like 2 minutes in. Come on, you could have cut in halfway through in 2 minutes. Let's go.
Right. Well, and then that's the bummer, is that she gets almost there. She's like 2 seconds away, and then she just needed one little bit.
Just like...
Yeah, the trap.
That's actually something I have to hand it to this movie. You actually kind of found yourself rooting for her, like, come on, you can do it, come on!
Yeah, I didn't want her to, I wanted her to lose, but I wanted the next guy to lose too. I actually kind of wanted them all to lose. But at the same time, it's like, well, is she going to pull it off? But I'm always saying, like, okay, if you're sawing off part of your leg, aren't you going to die from all the bloodletting and everything?
Well, technically, that's why
That's why he had
the belt tourniquet.
Okay. Oh, that's right. That's right.
See, the thing is, the minute she grabbed the saw, a little it pulled a string which immediately activated the timer. But if you notice, if she grabbed the tourniquet first to put the belt around her, that's what's supposed to cut off the blood flow.
Oh, I see.
If she grabbed that
makes sense.
first, she would have had more time.
Oh.
So she could have tourniqueted herself with ease and taken her time with that. Then when she grabbed the saw, the timer would have started, which would have given you some haste. But at that point, your leg would have been asleep because there was no blood flow going to it. So you would have had a little bit less pain. But because she had to quickly use the tourniquet, there wasn't enough time to cut off circulation to your leg and let it go to sleep where it would have had less pain. So because of that, by the time she got to the bone, she would have been in shock. And her brain would have just said, fuck it, pain just shut off.
Right, yeah. Well, and dude, the timer is such the perfect, I mean, I said it earlier, but it is such the perfect device for a movie to build suspense, and especially 3 minutes too, because it's like, it's just enough time where it's not like, oh, you've got 5 seconds, you're gone. You know, it's like, it's enough time for suspense. And then it's not too much time though too, where it's like, you've got 10 hours to do this, and it's like, well.
Yeah, it's like those old spy movies, not the James Bond, but the ones that came before it, where the original, like those old westerns with the like ticking time clock and the sticks of dynamite. When you hear the tick, 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 and you see the camera focus in on how much time they have, it builds the suspense because you don't know if they're going to get into it. If you've never seen the movie before, you don't know if they're going to succeed. You don't know if they're going to fail, and that's what builds it. And with these Saw films, I must admit, outside of the previous ones from like 4 to 6.
Yeah.
Those traps were designed to fail. Regardless. That's why it never truly focused on the time. It just focused on the people panicking half the time.
Oh, I see.
But it did focus on the time. Because every so often it went back. You saw, once the timer started, 3 minutes. Then it's all of a sudden 2 minutes. Then a minute and a half. 30 seconds. 10. 9.
Right.
Then 2, 1.
I like how they did it too, because it seemed realistic the way it all went down. Because sometimes it's like you got 3 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like you got 30 seconds, and then she's doing a whole bunch of stuff, and then it goes back and it's like 20 seconds, 25 seconds, and like she's doing more stuff, then it's like 23 seconds. It's like, wait, what? Like, this is not 3 minutes, this is like 30 minutes, you know. And but the way they did it, it felt like it was just that time.
It was counting down, because
it's like Indiana Jones when he's running while the door is closing. It's like you're running to it, and like the door is pretty much closed, and then like there's another shot, and then it's like still closing. And it's like okay, all
camera.
Right,
that's a simple camera trick, and a lot of people call that out. But
yeah,
I once tried to count along with the clock in this movie, and I'm like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1.
Yeah, right.
1. It's like
quarters.
I counted an extra 15 seconds before the trap went off, and I'm just like, most because it was at least clever enough that it wasn't going to go back and show you an extra 5 seconds. It just basically like 10, and then it never showed you the clock when it hit 10.
Yeah.
Outside of looking like the final 2, like 3, 2, 1, and then the trap went off. Outside of that, once it cut away from like the 15 or the 10-second marker, it focused on the person for the next 5 to an additional 10 seconds.
Right, and then it would just go to the last couple.
Yeah,
seconds.
so it gave you that suspension of disbelief that, okay, you're just focusing on this person a little bit longer, and we're not always focusing on the seconds.
Right.
People focus more on minutes than they do seconds.
But the way they do it is like, you feel like it's not, you know, they weren't really elongating and milking the last couple seconds, because it was.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, they really had it all, and some people almost made it and they didn't make it, and then like that one guy did make it. The pipe bombs.
The very first trap you see in the movie was essentially for John in order to. So basically, what happens is John, going through the hospital and everything, he hears this one guy in a cancer treatment, like, I'm going to fight. And he sees him sometime later as he's, like, getting ready to sign the little waivers for chemo, that it's like, he looks great and fantastic. He tells him about this remarkable cure that you've heard, the snake oil pitch. And he shows him like a scar. He's like, I call it my battle scar.
right.
Which I thought was like, okay, I'm not going to fault you.
You can call it Larry, too, you know.
It's his war wound or whatever. Like, dude, I got quite a few scars on... like, if you x-rayed my head, you'd think, like, oh, dear God, what happened to you? I don't call those war wounds. I call those stupidity, but regardless. But, yeah, when he meets him, he's got they say, like, oh, we got an opening, and we got to fly you out to Mexico, and he gets into a taxi, and there's this guy showing him all the sights, and... kind of getting a little too into one side.
Yeah, one side he's like, oh, this is where he used to rip that person's heart out, and it's like, all right, and then you get that feeling like he tells this story every single time. You know, he's got this whole.
And later you actually see him doing the exact same thing, and it's like, these fuckers used to grab and rip the heart out. And I'm like, okay, dude, you're a little too into this. Yeah. Then we have to remind ourselves, wait, it's Saw. He's the only one being slightly, like.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, this also gave me some Hostel vibes. Because, you know, in
I have to disagree.
Okay. Well, let me explain for a second. So in Hostel, they're in a foreign country, and there's these tourist trap locations where they go to, and then they get lured into people that are unsuspecting victims. Of course, Jigsaw is smarter than the average tourist. He's not just a regular tourist. But they have a tourist trap, essentially. They have a whole network of people where it's the cab driver's in on it, someone else is in on it. They obviously have, they have the kidnappers that show up and save him and, and make him think like that. So being in a foreign country, the whole just idea of being in a foreign country and having these tourist traps set up. I mean, they have tourist traps in Hollywood. They've got tourist traps like this in New York, like a lot of touristy locations.
I won't get into my whole thing with Hostel, but at the same time, I will agree, they have those tourist traps, and once he gets into the cab and goes through this little tour, they go all the way out into this little like farm area, and of course they have. This is actually something that was kind of funny when it's like immediately there's a van that pulls up and the cab driver just goes like,
right.
It's like, that's not what I would be responding if this was my livelihood. This the first time this is occurring to me, I'd be like reverse almost immediately, get the fuck out of there.
Right. Yeah.
Like, a fare's not worth it.
Right. Yeah.
But he's just treating it like, not again.
It's like, oh, darn it.
I know. Of course, they gotta pretend to be like the armed guards with masks. It's like, get out of the car, who are you? It's like, I'm John Kramer, don't you fucking lie to me. It's like, I swear I'm John Kramer. Like, no. We're your escort. We're here to it's okay, Mr. Kramer, come on in. It's like, dude, how obvious of a scam does it have to be?
Well, I know, but then it was still like, oh, you will hop in the back of the van. Oh, hey, you should have said your name was John Kramer. Come in this.
It's like they're still wearing the mask. It's like, right this way inside. Like they're waiting for you.
I was half expecting them to take off their mask, be like, hey, we were just making sure it's you, and da 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 da. And
it's like
because that would almost be like a trust building thing,
Yeah, once you find out that he's the patient, like, remove the mask. Oh, we're terribly sorry about all this, and
they could have held up a picture of him and like, oh, it is you. Okay, just making sure.
Exactly. It's like, but no, they gotta go through all this fanfare. But that was part of the scam. It's not about an actual confirming he is the patient. It's just about making you think security is high.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if this was your security, there are so many points where it would just fail.
Yeah.
Because first off, why would a cab take you all the way out into this middle of nowhere? Any cab worth his salt would understand, I'm not just going to take you in the middle of nowhere. I'm parking here on the street, and you're walking the rest of the way.
Right.
Joe, you're an Uber driver, right?
I've turned down many rides like that.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like,
you're not. Yeah. So if he was legit,
anyone with two brains of common sense. So right there, that's a red flag. But then again, the security stops a cab.
Well, and that's because you're so susceptible in those environments because you're so susceptible to. It's like you're in a cab in a foreign country, and then you're going to get this medical procedure, and it's just like really preying on the vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Like this whole movie is all about, and even people that are really smart, like John Kramer, fall for it. You know, I know what I love about that is when he was coming to the realization that was all a ruse. You know,
Yes.
afterwards, that was great. And then he goes back. You know, he gets them a gift, that thing, and he comes. And he comes back.
Because she showed after the treatment's done.
Yeah.
Treatment according to her goes well, and before
Right.
the procedure.
We talk about the procedure too.
Yeah, before the procedure, she says, "You have procedure in the morning. You can't drink any of this." But they say that this is their local, and it's a very expensive bottle of tequila, which he goes to the local mart to get. And this is what I loved about John Kramer, just flex his intelligence through the best art of show don't tell.
Yeah.
Was he looks up and sees something and sees a version of the horizon he saw at the clinic, but he's not supposed to know where the clinic is.
Right.
So he just sees something off in the distance. It was I think cell towers and it was some form of antenna and a small town underneath it.
Uh-huh.
And he looks at it and realized the placement's off, but that's the exact scene. That's the exact scene that I saw. And he just wrote down this location. And then wrote an exact placement of longitude and latitude. And then was able to pinpoint their location. That shows the level of intelligence that he has with proper planning. This guy is unstoppable. He finds them, and you're right. It's he's got that expensive bottle of tequila. Hello. He's still got the bandages on his head from the procedure.
He's in it. Yeah. Then he sees that it's an empty warehouse. It's a shell. It's it's essentially going back to a haunted house after Halloween.
And the flashes in his head of remembering. But my favorite was
I love that.
Something that also made no sense to me. I'm going to point this out as a bit of a flaw in the movie.
Okay.
And
great territory.
I'll admit that this is kind of something any scammer probably would do, but at the same time, you find out later that a lot of this stuff was real.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they would just leave it behind. But he goes in and he sees where they've done the operation, and a lot of us the old DVD, a DVD that they were using. They literally had a how-to for brain surgery on a screen to make him think that, this is what we're doing to your brain right now. It's can you turn the screen away? Right before it's and the next segment is...
Yeah, right. Well, it is something where if they were to actually if they were to actually abandon it, they probably wouldn't leave any trace of evidence.
Yeah,
it would probably be
they would take this stuff and use it somewhere else.
Yeah, it would have just been a shell. It would have been
you find out later that she's just planning to do this scam again. They've done it for almost 36 individuals beforehand.
Right.
And John Kramer was number 37. Now they're going to do this again. Why would they leave all that stuff? And it's real. Because you find out he uses one of the devices in one of his traps. So it's why would they leave any of this behind? Why is it still functioning? It's were they planning to come back here? Did he... But it was in shambles, so it didn't seem like they wanted to. But
it was cool because we know what they said. They're okay, you're going to have a partial awake surgery. Right.
Yes.
And so it's because it's not gonna feel. You're not gonna feel anything. You know.
Well, that was that's an actual medical procedure that they do. It's when they do a form of brain surgery on you, they have to keep you partially awake because if they hit the wrong lobe in your brain, you could seize, you could start convulsing or twitching, and they also want to make sure that you're semi-conscious. So if they do something correct, how many fingers do you see? 2. Great, you can still see.
Yeah.
That's they don't want to hit the wrong lobe, and all of a sudden you start seeing Daisy, where does the wind blow? Okay, don't touch that one.
But it works so perfectly because they had the screen there. It's see what we're doing here?
Yes.
And he was essentially watching a video of just anything, and that's why it was oh my gosh. So,
welcome to the house of brain surgery.
It sold it even more, the fact that he was awake versus him being asleep and then him kind of looking and then feeling around or something like that and noticing that there's no scar or anything like that. It really made it sell because it looked like they're actually doing something. And then when he looked at the video and it was oh man, he just got duped. He really
pulls the bandages off. They're they didn't shave his head for the
they didn't do
there
anything.
Were no scars, nothing.
Yeah, it going back to the Steve Jobs thing, when in that movie, I think the Steve Jobs movie. I think not the Ashton Kutcher one, the other one, or maybe the Ashton Kutcher one actually, where they go to that spiritual healer at the end, and he's taking out chicken liver or whatever from his stomach, and they're doing this whole thing, and it's oh my.
Oh gosh. Yeah,
that Man on the Moon.
Man on the Moon. That's what it was. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, so what's his name?
Jim Carrey.
Not Jim Carrey.
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
So that sorry, not Steve Jobs. Oh, Steve Jobs did some kind of holistic thing, didn't he?
Steve Jobs, I'm not sure which holistic thing he did. I think it had something to do. It wasn't crystals.
I think he started with like some holistic, and then he eventually went to actual procedure. But it was too
I know
late.
he tried acupuncture, which acupuncture can help, but it's
Right, it's more like a stress relief, not
most of the time.
Right.
I know he did like the cupping, where you actually like light a fire inside these cups, put it on the skin, and it's just like, because there's no oxygen and heat, it's raising the skin. It's supposed to like suck impurities out of you.
Right. Yeah.
All it does, it's actually a muscle. The real diagnosis of not diagnosis. The real thing that that's supposed to do is warm your muscles and pull them. So it's actually a muscle relaxer.
Oh,
It's nothing more than that. It doesn't suck out any impurities. If it did, it's like, I'm pretty sure it would kill me. I'm nothing but impurities. But
yeah, treatment's really popular in China.
yeah.
Oh, is it really? Oh, wow. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, all of this treatment, and just how like once he found out like it's all a scam, he just like smashes the tequila and
Yeah.
he goes.
Which I was like, he should have. It would have been funny if he like took the tequila off and started chugging it. It was like, he's like,
No.
you know.
That's
but it
not the
wasn't
type
his.
person he
Yeah,
is.
it wasn't his.
But the
wasn't his
first
style.
guy, it's like it's the cab driver.
Yeah.
And I just love the what he strapped 2 pipe bombs wired into his arms, and why are you flinching?
You're right.
You're just like over there. It's like, dude, I'm not like. Well, you see,
Oh, no.
he cuts into
Yeah.
it like so.
Yeah. No, it is. I get.
I'm actually surprised that guy got to survive. Like, because he told John Kramer kidnapped him and said, "You're going to tell me everything," and he told him, but still put him through that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I just assumed he would just like fail, but no, this guy's just like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
just like he wants it off. And I'm sitting there going, what are you doing? Because he was trying to pry it off, and I'm like, dude, cut along the cut sideways, horizontal, cut it
I know.
smoother.
Yeah. There's like chunks of his arm on the ground.
Yeah.
27 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 127 hours based on
Oh.
a true story. That's a really good movie. I like that movie.
I
a
saw
lot.
that one.
Yeah, based on.
But I do love how John Kramer like quickly grabbed the first aid, gave it to him, and said, "You're gonna be all right." The look on the guy's face did not seem like he was angry anymore at John.
Right.
Just like confused but relieved.
Oh, I love when the scene when the doctor lady talks like, oh, so what do you do for work? Or like he's
yeah,
like, oh, I was an architect and an engineer.
Architect and engineer.
And then
for
like, oh, but I'm
most of
retired.
his life.
I'm retired now, but now I help. What does he say? I help people get out of break the barriers.
I help
in their
people
life.
overcome adversity
Yeah.
in their life.
You're
It's
right.
like,
Yeah. And it's like, well, that's one way of putting
yeah,
it.
that's a very interesting way to put what you do.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, so you're a
Sort of
life,
like helping.
you're helping. So you're a life
coach?
Yeah.
Something
Something
like
like
that.
that. Yeah. That was great. Yeah.
I loved how he phrased it, because I'm just sitting there along with him. Something like that. Something like that. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Something like that. And that is a thing why you kind of relate to him, because he's not. He's wants
He's not
them to be
inherently
good.
evil,
Yeah,
and
he's
believes
not.
what he's doing is helping people.
And he believes in second chances too, is a big
Yes.
thing, right? Because the one girl's like, well, let's just kill her. That one girl's like, oh yeah, we should just kill her because she's so terrible, and yes, she is terrible.
Yeah,
It's
she
like,
doesn't deserve a second chance. And
everyone deserves.
that's actually what I did enjoy. Amanda, from
Yeah.
a lot of the others, was in this one helping out John Kramer. And if you don't know who that is, you've never seen the second or any of the others outside of the first one. Amanda is a disciple of John Kramer's.
Yeah.
She was in the second one, but that was not her first interaction with John Kramer. She was one of the first victims of his reverse bear trap. And she had to get the key out by cutting into another person. And it's like, what are you willing to do in order to escape? And she basically eviscerated the guy, got the key, got it out, and he said, well, congratulations, how do you feel? And she eventually fell down another hole. She got away from drugs and alcohol, but
Yeah.
went into cutting herself because she kind of it became an obsession. She couldn't get away from how she felt afterwards, the relief, the sense of purpose of having a new life, but because of what it came from, she thought it had to come through pain. And that's how she met John Kramer again, who gave her a sense of purpose. So, of course, he, in the second film, said, you're going to be a bit of a spy for me by pretending to be one of the victims. Mm-hmm. And kind of maybe helping them out if they get any problems. And in this, she's actually assisting John Kramer, because I love how one of the girls, like, the minute I get out of here, I'm going to fucking kill you. It's like, that's good. A good plan.
Right.
You'll need that. And I'm just
like, that's a good plan. That's a cute plan. Yeah. Good luck with that.
You'll need that. It gave her...
well, yeah.
She wanted to encourage a sense of motivation, but I loved having Amanda in here because...
she has that kind of...
she has empathy for them, yes.
Yeah.
But what I loved is one of the victims, Gabriella. I was so rooting for Gabriella to survive the whole film. And
oh yeah, you liked her. Yeah, I thought she was like a prostitute. You're like, she's not a prostitute. She's just a drug addict. I'm like, she's probably
no. Victoria.
Let's admit it.
What was the first girl? Her name was Victoria. The leg girl.
Oh, the leg girl.
Yeah. Shut up. She was the one who got decapitated.
Yeah.
I think it was Victoria.
Oh, you liked her? The one?
No.
You wanted her to
win? Veronica. She was the prostitute. Gabriella was just a junkie. And
okay, who's probably a prostitute. Let's be honest.
No, doubtful.
He had a crush on her, but she's probably a prostitute.
No!
It's okay.
The reason why Amanda fell for her was because Amanda was also a junkie.
Until I realized she was a prostitute, I had a crush on her too.
Shut up. But that's why Amanda had empathy for Gabriella and didn't want her to go through the trials so soon. Because after Victoria just chopped her leg off to... basically get some marrow out to survive and didn't make it.
Yeah.
Kramer said, Gabriella's next, and she kind of was hesitant about that. So instead, she says, no, we're going to put the veterinarian who was also in on the scam. There was quite a few people in on the scam. There was a prostitute, a junkie, the head
junkie
doctor.
who's also a prostitute.
Shut up. The head doctor who's in charge of it all. There were two people.
The taxi guy.
The taxi guy. There were two guys who were claiming to be former patients.
Right.
There was a veterinarian who was supposed to be like an anesthesiologist.
Dude, but that's the thing, man. Is like I love it when she has the chart and because I was thinking like, man, how much is he wiring her? You know. And it said $250,000, and then the other one was like $450,000. So it's like if you're making $250,000 in like a couple days, like you can afford
there's probably
to pay
an insurance or life savings.
There's a whole team that you can pay, here that are getting money and then she was like, oh well, less people to pay. But the thing is like. That girl, the head, Gabriella, right? Or what was the blonde girl?
Gabriella was the junkie. The head one was I forget her name. I only knew her as the bitch.
Yeah, so she couldn't. There's no way she could pull this off just on her own.
Yes, I agree. There was a team, and I'm glad that John Kramer was able to round the majority of them up. What I thought was interesting throughout each and every single trap was how it wasn't as though it was that intricate. Not creating the devices were that intricate, but how they all went about, like going through them. First off, there's just literally this wire that's going back and forth to chop someone's head off. Oh. That's something that can be set up if you know how to do it. Outside of that, you had the other guy. This was our biggest complaint. This guy, the veterinarian.
The vet. Yeah.
His trap. He quite literally had free range of his arms, but he had to cut into a portion of his skull to pull out some cerebrum or brain tissue.
Yeah.
Put it in this little like acid dish, and when it breaks down, it adds more. It adds more weight to it to create a circuit. Otherwise, this trap closes and fries his face. And I thought it was interesting that when the mask closed, it shows the face of the exact same statue that the taxi drivers point out. That's the deity they worship that eats the hearts of.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a cool added touch. It closes on him.
I hated the fact that the guy was... Two things I didn't like. One, you and I agree. When he cut into himself, he's like, oh! It's like,
Right.
That's your best
Yeah, he's
scream?
like, oh no, oh, ooh.
It kind of makes.
Gosh,
it,
this is.
It just made me think of that moment from The Simpsons where like Mr. Burns was like 137 takes, and that's the best one. And I'm just sitting there going, how many takes did we do before we? But the director looked and said, "Yeah, that's the best we're gonna get out of it."
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, because I was probably like, that guy has a limit. Certain actors just have that limit, and
Agreed. It's like,
and they're
don't
just
get me
not
wrong.
gonna get any
Throughout
better
the
than
film, he was believable and he was good.
as a vet, he was okay, but when he gets captured and he's in that position, he's like, "Come on, guys!" Like, no.
Well, admittedly, he was just doing what he needed to do in order to gain some sympathy points to see if he could try and escape or
right. But then he's like, guys, like, let me free, and then she's like, no. He's like, he like goes off on her. He flips the switch, and that like, they would say whatever.
He just tases his face.
Yeah, that was amazing. Funny. I love that. I was like, yes. Well, that's part of the reason, like, with these movies is there are those characters that you hate, even if they're a bad actor or something like that.
Yeah,
you're gonna still get some pleasure out of them. Getting there,
kind of suffering.
Come up and So.
The second thing that I just didn't like about him was the dumb decision he made. He cut the bone and chunk of his skull off and he dropped it and let it hit the floor. I'm like, dude, put it in the acid bath. That'll add a bit more weight to it. That'll clear the circuit. But no, he has to we have to go for the brain.
Well, I thought it was like a special chemical that gets released that is like from the brain matter itself. I think that's what it was. So, to drop it on the floor too. Anyway, and then also like the big scoop of the brain that he took. And he's like, oh, there's people that got a big part of their brain out, and then it's like it is new.
Actually,
and then he's also like, oh, he scoops a whole chunk of his brain out, and then he's just like, oh, okay.
Actually, there's a funny story. I was going to tell you, there was, and this is a real thing that happened. Way back in the early 1900s, there was a railroad worker who had this like metal spike that it worked on an explosive, not a literal explosive pressure pack, but almost like a shotgun effect.
Yeah.
That it would fire these rails directly into the walls of coal mines. And this guy demonstrated this with a lot of other things. Well, one day he was demonstrating it and just kind of like pounding it, and it went right through his jaw, through his brain, and he's just looking, his blood's pouring down his face like, what just happened? Here's the thing. It is a true story. You can look it up. He was acting like nothing had happened. So I'm like, why is everyone looking at me like this? They're like, we need to get you to a hospital. They get him to the hospital the whole time. He's being calm. He's being quiet. Like, no pain, no nothing. They get him to the doctor. He's like, hey, doc, I'm being told I have an issue. They remove it, and even after a sizable chunk of his brain is gone, a portion of his jaw had to be stitched up and, cleared. There was a hole there. He still acted completely normal, still carried the spike around, but talked about safety with it for a couple years before he started becoming aggressive, started having seizures, and then died a few years later. Oh, wow. But before then, a sizable chunk of his brain was gone, and it never grew back, nothing.
Right, because they say because the brain has that
the brain is a
plasticity. It's kind of like butter. It's like it can.
Essentially, the brain fires off neurons to let us do what we can do, and in some cases, very rare cases, the brain can actually say, "Oh, we're not going to get a signal. Reroute so it can do the exact same thing, but in a different portion of the brain." This can have adverse side effects such as aggression, mood swings, possible seizures, or even gaps in memory. But it is possible. And that's what John Kramer was telling him. It's like, the brain is a remarkable thing. And
yeah. I love how he, whatever he says, it's like,
this man could read audio book.
Yeah.
Seriously, I want this man to read Goodnight Moon.
Right.
Goodnight
Moon,
good night June.
Good night, cow.
Good night to all.
Yeah.
Seriously, this man reads Dr. Seuss to me. I'm going to be terrified and enthralled in one go.
Which, by the way, I love when we talked about this a little bit before the review. When she mocks him, she's like, oh yeah, you want to see, like, you want to play a game? Like, you love your voice.
That's actually something I liked toward the end. They didn't take themselves too seriously with this film. They openly kind of mocked the whole thing about Jigsaw. And
it was a nod to it was kind of like a wink and nod to the audience, because anyone that has seen Saw, they always do the voice. Want to play a game, And
one thing I have to admit was what the thing I didn't see this coming. So I got to admit, props to the movie for kind of putting that as a twist.
Yeah.
Which was when the doctor herself gets out of the trap by what she thinks is setting a little trap herself. Turns out one of the other patients was in on the whole thing and happened to be her boyfriend or husband. It wasn't really established, but her lover,
right.
essentially.
So the guy shows up at the warehouse and is like, "Give me my money, you guys are crooks."
Oh yeah, he pretends to be like the irate person.
Yeah, and then turns out he's like her boyfriend or whatever. Like
yeah, so of course he like John Kramer says, "Oh, I'll." Like, they knock him out. They say, like, "Oh, not to worry. I'll untie you. You can watch what's going on, but you have to follow the rules of the game. You can't use a gun that he brought." And I'm like, okay. It's like, and she won't leave until the game is completed. I don't know about you, but I would have immediately go, and what are the parameters of this game? He seemed a little too forthcoming, and then, of course, he's like, everyone get down there, and she's just like,
right.
She's like a happy meerkat. He's like,
yeah, I knew that he had a trick up his sleeve though. As soon as because he's just like he puts the thing around it, he locks it up, and then gives him the key, and I'm like, dude,
he makes these traps. You don't think that he doesn't know a quick way to get out?
Right, he's making them fall into this trap, hook, line, and sinker. I knew, it, but it's how do you do it, and then how do you get them? And then he also said like it didn't go exactly according to plan,
but it went according to plan. Not
yeah, it did pretty much. Yeah,
actually, it's one of the things that I loved about her trap is she's like cuffed to her neck on a platform, completely alone on the platform, not in the entire building. She's viewing all the other things that are happening to these people, but her entire thing was. You later find out when she makes John Kramer and a random kid, because apparently she has to be that level of an evil person, saying, "I want him to watch a true innocent kid die." I'm like, wow, we really want you to die now.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And
that was great. Wait, but what was the kid doing playing soccer?
He just basically... He kind of like, that's where he goes to just play soccer.
Right, in the back alleyway.
Beat a ball against the wall. It's
right.
Like, that's kind of like, he's a local. This is his area before she used it.
Well, I like that Jigsaw and that kid had this like kind of connection, and then he asked him. There was like the.
He asked him the whole Spanish, what's the Spanish word for pull?
For Spanish word for pull, and then that comes in later. He's like, what did he say? He's like, what's the opposite of pull? He's like, don't do that. He's like, he's like, don't pull, or don't.
He's like, he points and says, don't pull.
Yeah.
Which was the key thing, because you find out that when it's activated, they both end up the chains get pulled, so both of them lay down, and when you pull the lever, it tilts, so you go backward, but the other person going upward, the person going upward is fine. The person going backward is getting waterboarded with blood.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if he set the trap for that to happen to him, he is very sick and very twisted.
He knew that if you've never been waterboarded before, I have. It's not that.
When were you waterboarded?
Me and my brother used to do a lot of stupid crap to each other.
Okay.
One of them was literally waterboarding each other for no other reason than, let's see what this is like.
Yeah.
But if you're expecting it, you can control the outcome, and you can basically control your breathing, of how the water hits you. Especially if it's coming down in one direct area.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Waterboarding is supposed to come from the top down and up. It's like, it's not supposed to be in one place.
Yeah.
But the key thing for this, it's just coming down in one place. So he's able to control it. But the thing is, when John Kramer pulls the lever so he gets waterboarded blood, then the kid sees what John Kramer is doing and pulls it. The key thing is, if she had activated that trap, her and one other person would have had to trade off until the blood is completely drained. They could have survived that by working together.
Oh, right. But he didn't want the kid to get...
Exactly. So he was willing to take the hit, but the kid didn't want John Kramer to suffer, and that showed the kid's good heart. Mm-hmm. That's what I actually liked about it. It wasn't this kid just watching this and all that occurring. But what I liked is she's basically saying, he'll end up dying anyway, especially when he starts holding the lever because he doesn't want the kid to,
Oh, yeah. And the
so
other
they
kid
go
couldn't-
up,
Yeah.
and her boyfriend asks the question, wait a minute, if he didn't know I was going to show, who was supposed to be the second one in the trap with you? And you can see the wheels in her head, and she's like, just get the money, let's go.
Yeah, let's get the money, let's get out of here.
Just get the money and let's go. It's like, shut up and stop pointing out logic.
Yeah, which she grabs the money, and then sure enough, there's another timer on there. Yeah, there's a timer, 10 minutes, and she looks in the bag, and it's just a bunch of paperwork. Was it the names?
It was the documents of all the people she had scammed, and
Yeah.
I love John Kramer does his homework, and Amanda points out when he holds it, and it's like all of these people were they nothing more than paychecks to you? And Amanda says they're all 6 feet under. We checked.
Right.
Don't bother lying to us.
No one's healed. Yeah, no one. Oh, and I love how she was like, "Don't, John. My dad's healing program is legit. I could still get you in it." She is still, and he's like, "And you're still lying to me."
Yeah,
you're still. It's like, man.
At a certain point, when
people will do whatever at that point.
He rounded all of you up and has a list of all the people that you claim to help that are all dead. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he can recite your social security number and all the PO boxes under your name. Bitch, stop lying.
Right? Yeah.
Like, just own up to it. Maybe
just
it'll be less
to
painful.
Right. So, well, I think we've pretty much said everything we needed to say. If there's anything else we need to say,
yeah, I have to agree. I think we kind of come to the apex of. This is kind of why we're both giving it a 4.5. Outside of the veterinarian's little gray matters, pain slip up for his acting, outside of a few key things that's odd.
Yeah.
I still have to give the credit, the effects a lot. It was primarily practical. Effects.
Yeah. I was gonna say a lot of the practical, the body, the head. Looked
I'm a stickler
legit,
for practical effects.
Yep.
I loved that.
As am I.
The only CG that ever occurred was when Burns had to form on their bodies and faces.
But a lot of that was practical. After the burns were there.
That was makeup application to make it more realistic. And it's okay, I give you that. It's just a CG touch up.
Yeah.
That plus a lot so many wonderful moments that were all show don't tell. So many moments that took you the time to sit and marinate in the situation, marinate in the atmosphere. Just there was so much atmosphere to it. I have to say how, aside from the others, this has got to be just now one of my third, if not my second favorite Psalm film.
Nice, yeah, and I think this is my first favorite. And I think
you're gonna put this one at number one.
I'm putting this one at number
ignoring
one.
Carrie Ellis.
Well, I'm putting number one at number two. So, but it's a close number two. Of obviously 10 wouldn't happen, but to make a 10th movie in a series and to make it this good and to make it still where you're not completely jumping this shark, they're not in space yet. Typically the fourth one's in space.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll probably seesaw in space, but
Leprechaun 6 was the one in space.
4 is the one in space. I trust, man.
Yeah, you're right.
Then I think 5 and 6 they go to the hood, but then there's Leprechaun in the Hood 2, so it's kind of its own spin-off. Anyway, the Leprechaun, we can save those for St. Patrick's Day. the Leprechaun movies. But thank you guys so much. If you guys haven't already, please click a like on this video and subscribe for more. We got movie reviews every single week. Now we're going to be live, so live every Tuesday night. We will be broadcasting from Sacramento Media Center. And thank you guys so much. And also, thank you for the support. We just got a new patron, so now we are at 2 patrons on patreon.com/Hayhoe Studios. So if you guys would like to support the studio, definitely go there, and we'll leave the links in the description below. You could also grab a shirt. We got Simp coming out hopefully by the end of the year. We're still working on the audio post-production and all that good stuff. And
still got it going?
Namely, though, the newest one by Halloween is Bigfoot's Ghost. So Bigfoot's Ghost will be coming out by Halloween, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much, James, and thank you to technical director
Thank you for
Joe.
having me again, Tremain. And thank you for all you who tuned in and subscribed to the channel. We will see you on the next viewing
At the movies.
Bye-bye.